All right, guys, welcome to March's episode of Building Whitetails. Every year, my goal is to dive deeper and deeper into land management, and one of those things is taking care of our soil. And we're going to go over some misconceptions and that people are often seeing and a lot of people are talking about in regards to soil management and soil health and how to correct those problems.
I've said it before, you'll hear me say it again, I will continue to say it. Help the deer do what deer want to do.
All right, guys, so I'm not going to tell you how to take your soil samples. There's a lot of information out there. Go to your local cooperative, your grain elevator, places that farmers work closely with, where they get fertilizer, chemical, things of that nature. I farm for a living, so this is something that I do every single year on literally hundreds of acres a year. I'm going over soil tests. I'm extremely passionate about this because there's, like I said earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions in regards to things that people are putting out there and information. So when you get your soil tests back, and guys, make sure to do get the most broken down tests that you can possibly do. Don't just do pH, N, P, and K. If you can, get more than that. So on a more elaborate soil test, and we can throw one up here on the screen, a PDF of just one that I pulled off of one of my fields. One of the first things you're going to see is organic matter. Organic matter is very important in the soil in regards to soil health, soil structure. It helps with nutrients in the soil getting freed up to be used by plants. And guys, there's a lot of companies out there starting to put out products that are promoting improving the health of the soil, and I'm all for that. It's a good thing. Guys, this is a long outlook program. This is not a quick fix. You are not going to raise your organic matter in 1 year by a significant amount. I know some guys that do a much better job than I do in the agricultural side of things. They're implementing cover crops and cattle grazing, and that is the package on how to do it the fastest, and they're raising organic matter 1% in 5 or 6 years. So don't think that you can go out there and just plant a product on your field that's a blend of seeds and improve your organic matter in a fast manner. Guys, this is going to take a long time, and you're going to have to be diligent in doing this. There's a lot of misconceptions that the plant material on top of the ground, the material is plant or organic matter. It's not. Material and matter are two different things, and that's a huge misconception. So people see this great big luscious cover crop and they're like, man, that's a ton of organic matter out there. That's not matter, that's material. So don't be confused by that. Don't expect to see your organic matter levels raise real significantly in a short amount of time. So next thing you're probably going to see on your test is soil pH. I'm going in order of how most of these come back in tests, and also order of priority, honestly, and the most important things to fix starting out. So soil pH, and then we're going to talk about low versus high pH. There's a lot of argument out there about what is the exact perfect pH. And obviously it can kind of vary a little bit in your soils, but a general acceptance of the proper pH is a 6.5 pH. In our areas, we actually struggle with a lot of low pH. In other areas, from tests I've seen, people struggle with high pH. Guys, if you got, if you're say from a 6.3 to a 6. Honestly, I'm going to go to about a 6.8. You're in a pretty dang good zone. Consider yourself really lucky, because it takes a lot of work to get there. So if your soil is already there, you're sitting in really good shape. Now, I get this question a lot. What do I do if my soil is low? And a lot of people address what to do on low pH. Calcium deficiency is typically the main cause of a low pH. So if you're, a 5, say you're, on the downhill trajectory over here, you're at a 5.6. Let's just pull that number out. If you're at a 5.6, it's gonna take a lot of lime. It's gonna take several tons per acre to get that soil pH up. And This is something where you're probably going to have to get help with. You can put pelletized lime out, but guys, you've got two forms of lime. You've got one that's more of a fine form, a powder form that's used for agricultural purposes. That's going to be one that you're probably going to have to work through your local elevator, your grain cooperative, whoever sells fertilizers, things of that nature. That's who you're going to have to work with to get that applied. Because like I said, if you got a low pH, it takes a lot of tons to get your pH corrected to this target of a 6.5. Interesting note, on your legumes such as your clovers, alfalfas, that type, not soybeans, but they actually thrive in a little bit higher pH. So in my clover plots, I'm shooting for a 6.8 to a 7.0. So I will actually over apply lime in those areas to get to that higher pH. Now, what nobody talks about is what do I do on high pH? How do I get high pH lowered? This is much harder to do than to raise your pH. So something that you can use, and go and do your own research on this. I don't struggle with this, but I've done a lot of research on guys that do. What they'll do is they'll apply a product called elemental sulfur. I'm gonna write this down, E-L-E-M-E-N-T-A, elemental, U-L-F, elemental sulfur. Guys, and like I said, this is not something that I have personally done, but I have taken advice from guys that I trust in this category. Also, you can talk to your local elevator. Maybe people in your area also struggle with high pH. How do they combat that? But elemental sulfur has been one important key, and it takes quite a bit to change your soil profile to lower that pH down. Okay, guys, so your macronutrients. This is kind of the top 5 nutrients on your soil test that I'm going to look at after your organic matter and after your soil pH. Your nitrogen. Guys, nitrogen is the key. It's one of the key nutrients. All of these are key, but nitrogen is going to be the most visibly needed nutrient for your corn, particularly your corn, your grass crops, corn, milo. You don't need to apply nitrogen for soybeans or clover because those are legumes. They're nitrogen fixing, which means that they take atmospheric nitrogen and fix it in the soil itself. So actually those crops are really good at raising natural nitrogen levels in the soil. So that's the nitrogen. Pounds per acre totally depends on what your goals are. My food plots for corn, I apply approximately 150 pounds an acre of nitrogen to raise a corn crop. And I've sometimes applied more than that. It depends on your region of the country. You guys need to really dive in. Corn is not a beginner's food plot thing to plant, really. It's a very intensive crop to grow. It takes a lot of care and a lot of special attention to raise it successfully. So phosphorus, man, this I could talk a long time about phosphorus. It's the most antagonized nutrient in the soil, and by that I mean everything out there is fighting phosphorus. So the higher organic matter that you have in your soil, the more free phosphorus you're going to have in your ground. I say free. This is measured in levels of parts per million. Nitrogen is pounds an acre. The rest of these are in parts per million. ppm is what stands for the parts per million. So in phosphorus, my goal is 30 parts per million or more. If it's lower than that, we're going to be looking to apply phosphorus to raise those levels up. Potassium. This is kind of the third nutrient on the top 3. You'll hear most about N, P, and K. Potassium on a soil test, I'm going to write that on here. So this is how it's labeled on your test. You'll get back N, P, K. I don't exactly know why they use K on potassium, but phosphorus stole the P, so potassium got the K. That's a simple answer. I have no idea if it's scientifically accurate or not, but that's how it's read. Potassium, I'm looking for 200 parts per million or above. 180 is fine. You'll raise a crop there, but potassium is very important for cell structure in the plant. It's particularly important on your corn and your soybeans for the seed development in either the pod for the beans or for the ear in the corn. So N, P, and K, those are the three big hitters. Sulfur is measured in parts per million. 15 to 20 parts per million is a good level on your soil test. Sulfur and nitrogen are both leachable in the soil. What that means is that they will move through the soil profile and out of the root zone. They're more susceptible to rain and washing, things of that nature. So nitrogen, you can't, if you apply 140 pounds, 150 pounds of nitrogen on a corn crop, you raise a corn crop, that 140 to 150 pounds is going to be gone the next year. Typically the same with sulfur as well. So these are two nutrients that you'll have to apply every year if that's what your soil is requiring on your soil tests. Zinc is not a mobile nutrient. So I'll say that sulfur and nitrogen are mobile in the soil. Phosphorus, potassium, and zinc are much more immobile in the soil, meaning that they are not going to leave your soil profile at a rapid pace. Zinc is one that I've seen a great response to on crops, particularly your grain crops. All of them are very important, but it's also measured in parts per million. A much smaller number, a 0.8 to a 1.2 is the optimal level. Guys, these are, like I said, the top 5 macronutrients. Anything below that, calcium, magnesium, boron, manganese, molybdenum, things of that nature are called the micronutrients. And we can dive into those later on, but these are the main ones that if you get your pH and these 5 nutrients in good order in your food plots, your success is going to be fantastic. I am certain of that. As long as you've got, relatively good soil that drains well. If your food plot does not drain well, if it holds a lot of water, I would really look at, hey, could we, bring a piece of equipment in and make a ditch to get that water away? And some guys are probably like, why does that really matter that much? Well, the more water that stands on your soil for the longer amount of time, the more it's going to kill your microbes. Your nitrogen's going to leach, your sulfur is going to leach. It's going to kill good bacteria in your soil. And guys, your soil health is really what is going to transfer all these nutrients to your deer herd. You have to start thinking of a food plot as more of a shopping cart. It's picking up things as you go along and it's delivering them to the end user. That's what, people think the nutrients in the plant is how the deer gets it. The plant is all it's doing is pulling nutrients from the soil and then transferring it to the deer. So that's really, really key in regards to the health of the animal, is getting these in the proper order. In the proper levels to make sure that your food plot optimization is really where it needs to be. So guys, that's honestly the wrap. This is a little bit deeper dive into food plot health, soil health, fertility levels. So the first thing I would look at, just as a short wrap, is your organic matter. But remember, organic matter is not a quick fix. It's a long-term, takes a lot of work to change. So don't get caught that you can change that level in 1 year or 2 years. You can start to affect it in a positive way, but remember, it's going to take quite some time. Soil pH, this is something that can be changed rather quickly. Lime is going to raise pH. Elemental sulfur is going to lower pH. Make sure you have good drainage. That helps also very much with soil pH. Nitrogen, it's very important for your corn, for your grass crops. It's not needed for your corn, for your soybeans and your clover. Those are nitrogen fixing. Phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, and zinc, those are very, very important for your clover, your soybeans, as well as your grass crops and corn. So that's just a quick run through of these. All of these are super, super needed by plants to make sure that the levels are spot on. Is going to only improve your food plots in days to come. It's going to make your hunting better. So guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there. I know this isn't, super cinematic and whatever, but this is a deeper dive into what I'm passionate about. This is what I do for a living. So I really hope this is helpful. If you have any further questions, hit me up on Instagram. j.pretzer.9. I'd be glad to look at your soil tests. I'd be glad to help you guys out with any questions that you have. Be sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys following along, and I'm looking forward to next month.